I like to refer to this as the business owner's unspoken agreements. One of those things that when you start a business, you get a license. They don't make you take any kind of test to prove that you know how to drive a business. So there are certain things kind of de facto that you agree to when you take on a business license. And these are things like you admit that you are doing business in the state where you're doing the business, and therefore you're going to pay the taxes you're supposed to pay. You agree that you're going to use the correct methodologies to determine how much you're making so that when you report it to the state and the IRS, you're doing that correctly. The Federal Internet Tax Freedom Act, Title 47, Section 151. I know you haven't read this, but this is extremely important when it comes to owning a business. And if you haven't taken the time to read this, it doesn't matter. You're still being held to the standard of this without knowing what it is, because that's what things are based on when it comes to how much you owe, what the taxes are, and whatnot. Here it says you agree to be 100% honest in advertising and only advertise factual statements. That's part of the Internet Tax Freedom Act, but without knowing that, what you really know is that when you get into business, if you lie, you're going to get caught, and that's going to have an effect somewhere. I don't even want to talk about where that effect comes in, but it's going to have an effect. Knowing your tax reporting obligations, the reason why this is relevant is because the IRS and the Department of Revenue are going to hold you accountable for the tax you owe, whether or not you knew you owed it. That's just part of how this works. You agree that your taxes are going to be accurate and that you have your accurate, complete records for the past 5 years. This is one of the things you are required to do by law. It says, I pay income tax on all my net profits and I don't allow my business to pay for personal expenses without declaring it. So many people violate this, but it's one of the things that, according to the tax code, you're not allowed to do. This says you agree to be in possession of the UBI number of every contractor you've hired. Again, when you hire people that are supposed to receive a 1099 from you, you're supposed to have this information. For the last 5 years, most business owners don't even know they're required to capture this information, but if they do, they usually don't keep it for 5 years, but it is required according to the tax code. The penalty for not being in compliance could be up to $5,000 and 90 days in jail. Did you know you could get 90 days in jail for failing to keep a UBI number for a contractor who you hired 3 years ago? I know it's not going to happen, but the law says it could. You probably didn't know that. And again, did you know that when you take on a business, what you're really doing is taking on a liability, a risk that somebody could come after you, including the state, the feds, could come after you for money that you owe that you didn't even know you owed because you were violating a tax law that you didn't know existed. And therefore, your house, your car, your 401k, your IRA, your bank savings could all be at risk. And you are agreeing to this when you started your business. Now, that could be really scary if you didn't know that was all happening behind the scenes. And for a lot of people, it is scary. For a lot of people, it does happen. They do lose their assets. They do end up with penalties. They do end up losing all of their savings. This happens. So if you know that you've agreed to all this, maybe it helps you to just kind of take it a little bit more seriously. It's not a game, but you could play it like one. This part of the game are the rules. And if you know the rules, then you know which rules really apply and which ones don't. So I encourage you to do your homework, do the research, make sure you know what you're agreeing to when you start your company.